So my talk is about the founder journey and the mental toll it can take on any founder and why we should be focusing on creating an environment where founders feel welcome and they have the resources to, you know, go to someone and be like, hey, I'm struggling with something. Can you help me? So the way I'm going to start this is kind of talk about myself. So coming into UConn as a freshman, I kind of had this set plan. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. I want to go into space. You know, that's all I wanted to do. And that was a huge mistake, because coming into freshman year, I started going to parties, started meeting people, and I was like, whoa, this is weird. I started finding interest in things like anthropology. I was like at first when I signed up for the class, I was like, am I studying about rocks? Like, this is not fun at all. And then I started taking it, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, but why am I finding this interesting? So I decided to create this to kind of showcase the technical skill sets and like the soft skills that I had coming into UConn. So the tools I had were honestly just CAD. I went to an aerospace magnet school, which is why I was like, okay, let me do aerospace engineering in the future. And it was pretty bad. All I could really do was make a box and said, okay, I know how to CAD. But that's not good enough. My soft skills were, or the 4 indicators of soft skills I had were public speaking, organization, communication, and leadership. As you can see, public speaking is pretty much 0, but standing up here right now is like, for me, it's like a big step forward for public speaking. Organization wasn't really there. Communication was and I didn't really have any leadership experience because I didn't do anything in high school. It was more just, I went to school, went home, procrastinated on my homework, and just watched YouTube videos, and that was pretty much it. I called it a day. So the first venture the first time I took a stab at something new was I started this ed tech with my cousin, and it was called School Me. And we both realized that we had a common problem where before coming into college, we didn't really get any exposure to new and different types of field in college, like different types of majors, or we didn't really get to learn about the field we wanted to get into. My cousin is a triple major at Carnegie Mellon because of this reason. He was interested in so many things, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna just go with all 3 majors at the same time. And for me, it was like, I know I wanted to do engineering, but I didn't realize how complex but also boring engineering can be when coming to school. And if I had known that, maybe I would have picked something else. But so we had this great problem. We had come up with a way to create the product, and my cousin decided to put me in charge of the business end while he creates the product, which turned out to be a really horrible decision because I was a first-time founder. So my first task was to go and just cold call people and do some customer discovery. And I dreaded this every single second. I would do hundreds of calls during the week, and I would get no callbacks, no emails, and it was so painful. I had never felt that kind of rejection before, and it just made me really sad. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like telling my cousin, like, I was working at Subway at the time. I was like, let me just stay at Subway. I don't think I can do this. And then my cousin was like, no, you got to keep going. Like, this is just part of the process. And at the time, I didn't want to hear that, because it's like, I get it's part of the process, but it's like who wants to face this rejection? It's just insane. So my cousin made this deal with me. He's like, if we can get 3 customers, you have to quit Subway. And I was like, okay, fine. So I started doing customer discovery. I started talking to people. I finally got a few responses from parents, a few responses from students that were interested. My cousin developed the product, and we got 3 people, and I left Subway. And then the next week after, the 3 people that were interested were like, actually, I think we found something else. And I was like, oh no, I lost my job at Subway, and now we have to start all over again. And what I learned from this was that we had created a product, but we hadn't really found who we wanted to sell to. And having a product without having a market or a customer is just useless. You can't really do anything with it. It may be something really cool, but like, it's just something cool. It's just something shiny. You can't really do anything. So what I learned from this process was I was able to add a tool to my skill set, which was Bubble, because my cousin and I had used Bubble to create the website. And for my soft skills, I was able to increase my public speaking because I had to get on random Zoom calls with people I never met before and be like, hey, you want to buy this product from me or buy this service? My organization stayed the same. Communication got a little bit better because I had to talk to my cousin every day, updating him on what I was doing. My leadership, again, wasn't really there because the role I took in SchoolMe was more of like, I'm here just to learn, but I also wanted to do something that was just for me. Like, I wanted to be unique in some way, and I wanted my cousin to kind of show me that, so I didn't really take much of a leadership position here. But the two most important things I learned from this was customer discovery and market discovery, and how those are extremely important when starting anything. Any idea you possibly have, the first step you should be taking is talking to people. And there's always this idea that, like, oh, I can't talk to people about my idea, that someone's gonna steal it. Like, that's not gonna happen. You just need to talk to people and really figure out that, is your idea good? Like, do people want this? And it instilled this entrepreneurial bug in me. I was like, okay, I failed this pretty hard. I need to do something that's my own, and I want to learn from these mistakes. So then came Anzen. And what's interesting about Anzen is that it originally started as a capstone project in high school, and it was pretty stupid. It was pretty much a horn it's like an automatic horn system where if you're in an emergency situation, it would just start blowing the horn. And when I presented, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. But then I realized, like, who wants to hear a horn like every 5 seconds on the road because someone just can't drive? That's so stupid. So, so I started brainstorming with my co-founders at the time, and we decided to come up with this other thing where we also realized that another problem we faced when driving on the road was that sometimes we can't tell how hard someone in front of us is braking. So Anzen now is a brake bar that indicates your brake intensity to the driver behind you, and has an AI camera that will visualize any type of incident that occurs behind you and train autonomous vehicles. So this is what Anzen is now. It is a fully working prototype, so I could literally give this to you. You could put it in your car, and it'll function the way it's supposed to. And this was my first taste of success. I finally had something that I started, and it was working. I got into Get Seated, pitch night. I got into Traction. We got into Accelerate UConn. We pitched at Demo Day, and tomorrow we're pitching for a summer fellowship. So, things are finally working. And this was us celebrating in California because my co-founder goes to UC Berkeley. So you can imagine the time zone difference sometimes, makes things worse. Like, I'll be up at 3 a.m. working with him on this. So, but I don't want you guys to really focus on the success. I want you to focus on the struggle, because behind every success story is countless nights of people staying up, or countless nights of people trying to figure out what they're doing and not really knowing what to do. So the first thing I want to talk about is entrepreneurial stigma. And the Werth Institute has done a great job of kind of addressing this problem, where it's kind of widely considered that to be an entrepreneur, you have to be in the tech field. You need to know how to code. You need to know how to build something, which is not true, because everyday problems happen to everybody. It's not just to coders. It's not just to engineers. That's not what entrepreneurship is about. It's about creating a solution for an overarching problem that everybody could have. And I think, Werth Institute is trying, and they're doing a great job, but it still needs to be addressed a bit more, because I know so many people in the medical field that have ideas, but they have no way of actually, pursuing them in any way. For example, Capstone in education. Going to a magnet school, I had taken Capstone my senior year, and that was amazing because I was able to just create an idea and work on it. I had no restraints, there was no judgment. It was just, you try something and you create it. And now in college, what I see is that only engineering fields, mostly engineering fields, have Capstone. They have senior design. But medical fields don't have it. Nursing doesn't have it. It's just engineering. And why is that the case? Entrepreneurship isn't just for engineers. Engineers aren't the only ones that can create solutions. So I feel like if we can implement Capstone into the curriculum for all the majors and in education in general, it'll create an environment where students can be curious. They can pursue something even though it has nothing to do with what they're studying at school. because sometimes your ideas don't have anything to do with that. For example, I created a movie casting app just out of nowhere in the middle of the night because I thought there should be a better way for people to like find roles for, you know, being an extra in a movie. That has nothing to do with my major. But out of that, I was able to learn Figma. I was able to reach out to, you know, people and see, is this something they would want to use? There's always a positive in something that doesn't necessarily relate to what your major is. So the next thing is, you know, burnout, right? The most common phrase I heard when working on Anzen is that burnout is real and you just kind of have to deal with it. And it's like, okay, thank you. Like, you made a great, like, thank you so much. I really was able to, you know, use that information to get over it. Like, that doesn't help me in any way. And by burnout, I mean, like, I'm on like 3 different meetings on my laptop, my iPad, and my iPhone while also taking notes for class. Like, that was horrible, a horrible time, like during the semester while working on Anzen, being on a different time zone with my co-founder, you know, sleepless nights. I lost a lot of friends because I didn't go out on the weekends, and they're like, oh my God, okay, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. So it's like that kind of mental stress happens to a lot of founders. And UC Berkeley reported that 72% of all founders in their sample size self-reported mental health concerns. More than 30% had said that they had a long-term depression. 29% reported ADHD. And, you know, clearly it's an issue that hasn't been addressed. That burnout happens to everybody, and there's no real source to go to. And, you know, people can say, oh yeah, you got, you know, student health and wellness at, you know, a lot of different schools. But if you look at UConn specifically, there's no walk-ins at student health and wellness. You have to book an appointment, you know, a day or two ahead of time. And sometimes you don't even get a spot. And mental health isn't something that is planned. It just happens, you know. Burnout can happen anytime. And you can always struggle with something, whether that's like happening right now or you know, later down the road. You just don't know. And sometimes you need someone in that exact moment. And, you know, you can't always rely on friends and family, but you need someone. You need to have that kind of resource there. So mental health in this entrepreneurship space is something that really doesn't get addressed enough. Entrepreneurial stigma is getting addressed, you know, bringing more majors into this space. But like, there's no place where I can go like, oh, you know, I have my exams coming up. I have to do this. I have another pitch coming up. Like, there's no one I can go to and be like, hey, what should I do now? Should I drop something? Is there, you know, something else I should be doing to kind of manage my time? Things like that. There's no resources like that. And teaching students how to like go through a founder journey in class by applying Capstone in education for every major will not only make the students more curious, but it will also help them kind of understand what they need to do when that situation arises. Because you can't, like, even though we would want someone always there on the phone, you can't always have that. You need to know how to cope. And sometimes coping can be in a lot of bad ways. It can be like through drinking and things like that. And you don't want that happening. So if we can teach people how to, you know, what the founder journey is and how to go through that founder journey, you can make them stronger mentally. And if they're stronger mentally and they're more curious, when they get into the workforce, whether that's their own startup or a different type of job, then, you know, like, they'll pretty much be able to cope with anything. Like, if their boss is like, oh, you did a horrible job on this, their first reaction wouldn't be like, oh my God, like, I'm so bad at, you know, at whatever I did. It'd be like, let me ask my boss, what do I need to change? What are the key factors that, you know, impacted my work, and then go and fix that. Or it could be like, if you're in a meeting and your boss is telling you a project, if you're curious, you'll be able to kind of ask the right questions and change the dynamic of what exactly you're being assigned to. So to finish off, this is my favorite quote from Steve Jobs, which is, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And the reason I think this is very important is because if you spend too much time like dwelling on, you know, what somebody else is doing or worrying about comparing yourself to somebody else, it's going to just make your mental health worse and worse, and you're going to feel bad about yourself. But you don't want to do that. You want to be strong, you want to be curious, and you want to make sure that your future you're doing something you like, something you love, and it's all about passion. And you want to make sure that your mental health is up to par, and you always have a resource there. Thank you.